Hey sis, hey, this is Tanya Graham Barrett. Welcome back to Hey Sis Arise podcast. This is episode 7, and the title of this episode, sis, is My Why. My Why. I am at episode 7. Biblically, for even naturally, the number 7, sis, is a big deal, biblically. That's the number of completion, worldly, naturally, 777 is, I don't know, a betting number or a lucky number. So sis, I decided to explain my why. If you, my sisters out there, are asking the question, Tanya, sis, why? I'm here today to chop up, to explain, to unpack, like I like to say, my why. That's the title, and that's where we will jump in. My why. Why do I keep coming back to this platform? Why am I yearning and carrying an internal call for my sis? Well, sis, some of you know about my book that I penned a couple of years ago titled Hey Sis Arise, which I am currently revising, and I have mentioned that before in previous episodes. I am also, sis, creating a journal as a companion to the book, so please keep your eyes peeled and open for that. Coming soon, sis, coming soon. Sis, that book was the result of an extremely painful season in my life. That season left me hurt, lost, and grasping for meaning. If you've listened to any of my podcast episodes in the past, sis, you know I live life with hope and am not one to park at calamity or negativity. If you know me personally, you also know that about me. No, I'm not a Pollyanna, but I, believe that there's a God, and I believe that there's a creator, which is God, and I believe that that God and that creator is my God, and I believe he sees me. I believe, as I have shared again in previous podcasts and, many times and in my book and all of the stuff, that before I was formed in my mother's womb, God knew me. He foreknew me. I believe in that, sis, and I stand on that. So, I honestly believe that the pain and upset I experienced was not sent by God, but allowed by God. Sis, during that season, I inquired, searched, studied, prayed, cried, sought, fasted, prayed, suppressed, faked. Yes, sis, I said faked. That's FAKED. Masked, cried more, isolated, cried more, and looked for meaning. And through it all, God answered, God comforted, God taught, God healed, God guided, God hid me, God kept me, God went before me, God went on both sides of me, God went behind me, God kept me. Sis, I talked to you about returning to school to pursue counseling, and I believe that even that was a God thing. Though I stayed in God's face with questions upon questions, many of my answers were revealed during my studies. Sis, learning all about human behavior, psychological processes, vicious loops in our minds, in our mindsets, and in our circuitries that become mind traps. transgenerational mudslides that smear destruction on beautiful pastures. Sis, I am unpacking this, and even while I'm sharing, my why, I have to say that I had a conversation recently with a friend, and that friend shared some things with me, and she shared some information, personal information about herself during a time when, you know, and this was just any given day recently, where I was just thinking, like, why are you doing this podcast? Do you want to be famous? No, sis, I really don't want to be famous. I don't want to be famous. But I was walking around with a question mark. Um, and from talking to this friend, I believe God revealed to me my fear, as bold as I am, as loving of myself as I am, there is a fear of um, sharing this part of my past historical hurt and betrayals. But in the past few weeks, I have been feeling God's press for me to share it, and God's reminder of why I launched out to create this podcast, Hey Sis Arise. It was in the depth of my deep hurting and longing for my sis to arise. So I just wanted to disclose that, sis, that this is not easy. So I need y'all to have my back, be my cheerleader as I show up and be you all's cheerleaders. You know, and as I was saying, as I stayed in God's face and I, presented my questions, presented my whys, presented, how could this, all of the stuff. And then learning about, as I stated, the human behavior and psychological processes, these vicious loops that just continue to go around and around and around and around that we get stuck in. Sis, I love how God met me right in the midst of my pain and upset. He used what I had in my hand in that season to equip and teach me what I needed to learn. And not only learn, but to grow. And not only to grow, but walk alongside others and pour myself out. Sis, sis, sis. When I say, hey sis, when I pen, hey sis, when I come to this platform and shout to the hills and mountains, hey sis, it's personal. During that season, that difficult season, sis, I was calling and yearning for my sis, my big little sis, my ride or die, my ace boom boom. During that season, life had dealt a heavy hitter, and the deck was foreign to me. Those cards were very foreign to me, sis. Sis, up until that season, I did not know what bloodline betrayal was. Not personally. Of course, I had heard about it and even witnessed it from others. I heard countless upsets amongst families within my profession as a community home health nurse and personal relationships. But not me, not personally, until I did. Sis, I mentioned a foreign deck, and I do mean foreign. I mean, I don't even know if they have playing cards with different languages on it. Well, because you just have numbers and you have the kings, the queens, and the jacks, and the aces, and the jokers. So I don't know, but life-wise, that deck of cards was foreign. I had to cling to God just to understand the signs and symbols of the hand I was being dealt. Since this is where my spiritual awakening foundation was strengthened. Since this is where my grounding and centering practices took meaning. I've always had a prayer and devotional practice, However, spiritual transformation took root during this season of my life like never before. Hey Sis Arise became my breath prayer. Sis, I am grateful that God kept me through that season. All the many, many, many lessons I learned. As I have stated so many times, I believe God has called me to this space because there are many of you that are calling your sister or are the sister that needs love and grace to arise. Sis, understanding the actions and reactivities of ourselves and others helps us to navigate and unpack the upsets, betrayals, and confusion. Unpacking generational, transgenerational, intergenerational predispositions, epigenetics, mind trap loops, and so much more will bring insight, understanding, and overall healing and wholeness. Sis, scripture says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and dark rulers of this realm. Sis, I am unpacking this here in this platform because I expect all of you to do the work. Therefore, I must do the work. Now, let me say this. I was healed throughout all of those upsets and the hurt and the betrayal and pain that I personally experienced because I was able to forgive. And I want to encourage all of you sisters out there, if you have been hurt, if you have been betrayed, and I will be bold enough to say, sis, if you are over the age of, I'll say 22, you've been hurt, you've been disappointed, you may have been betrayed, you may have been let down. And if I can admonish you to, first of all, acknowledge your hurt, your disappointment, your betrayal, sit in it, reason, and then release it to God and forgive. The key point I'm trying to make here, sis, is forgiveness. You cannot move on. You cannot grow. You cannot find meaning and clarity if you're walking with unforgiveness. I love my big little sis. God has worked so many things out for us. And I believe it all started with forgiveness. How do you know if you've forgiven, sis? I once had a very smart lady that I adore and admire, that's my senior, a senior to me, tell me, you know that you have forgiven when you can pray for the person that you may be struggling to forgive. When you can pray hearty, wholesome, elevating prayers over that person or people, forgiveness is taking roots within you, sis. Forgiveness will begin to establish those tiny root-like vines that go deep in the inner parts of your soul and begin to release those chains that can keep you bound and fester when you walk around with unforgiveness. So that's the key, sis. We're gonna be hurt. Nobody wants to be hurt. There's that famous saying that says, hurt people, hurt people. Yeah, I get it. Hurt people, hurt people. But I've seen people, sis, that have a difficult time releasing forgiveness against, about someone or someone's, others, and you can see how it impacts them probably more than it impacts the person that they're holding the grudge or the resentment or the unforgiveness towards. So my sisters, I love you all enough to say and pray that if you have unforgiveness in your heart, it's also in your mind, it's also in your spirit, it's also in your world and in your life. And every part of your life is affected by that, sis. So release, begin to practice to release, begin to pray over that person or those persons so that you can grow and find clarity and understanding and overall healing. So sis, I invite you to come alongside me and invite all of our sisters to arise, doing the work first for ourselves and reaching for others, lovingly, gracefully, and intentionally. I must say, sis, that we show up the way our inward being shows up. I'm trying to break this down in a way that is understood, sis. So I just feel like there's a tug or some tension when I say forgive, forgive, forgive. Some of you are like, yeah, you don't know what I went through, Tanya. You don't know what I experienced. And you're probably right. I don't. But sis, I do know unforgiveness and how it can destroy if it's not relinquished to God. And you might have to go back 1,500 times in a day. Do it, sis. Do it, sis. So, sis, thank you for tuning in today to this podcast. This was not easy, as I said, for me to share, but my love for you and the passion I carry to see all of God's daughters soar and press towards the holy calling and be delivered and set free was the driving force that got me to this point. Episode 7, my why. So without further ado, sis, as I end this episode, I will leave you with my loving affirmations, like always. Hey, sis, extend grace. Hey, sis, forgive. Hey, sis, love. Hey, sis, unpack. Hey, sis, ground yourself. Hey, sis, breathe. Hey, sis, pray. Hey, sis, grow. Hey, sis, seek peace. Hey, sis, create boundaries. Hey, sis, I see you. Hey, sis, be still. Hey, sis, arise. Until next time, bye for now.